Many of you remember the turbulent events of 2020, especially regarding the death of George Floyd. There may be some of you who actively participated in the hashtag Black Lives Matter protest, but I was like many others who sat in their living rooms and watched the protests unfold on live TV. My community has also experienced needless violence against Asians during the height of the pandemic, and so hearing of so many individuals who are dying simply for their nationality, I wanted to speak up against the harsh treatment of police authorities on people of color. Today, I will talk about how law enforcement has continuously abused their power to harm those that they are supposed to protect, and I will also discuss some possible reformation steps to achieve a better future for America. The problem is, within the past few years, police brutality has continued to be on the rise. People all over the nation are being killed simply for the color of their skin. According to a research report done by the American Civil Liberties Union, police have continued to fatally shoot people at the same rate during the first 6 months of 2020 as they did over the same period from 2015 to 2019. More and more people are starting to distrust police officers in fear that they will hurt or shoot individuals. One solution that may help is the act of implementing additional training exercises that focus on the requirements needed before using force to further improve police relations with citizens. An example of this reformation comes from the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, who offers that, and I quote, "deadly force should only be allowed if necessary to defend against an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury to the officer or to another person, and only after all other alternatives to lethal force have been exhausted." If police were to be reformed this way, people will start to trust police officers again, which would benefit communities by removing the tension between officers and citizens. Essentially, police officers would learn how to de-escalate situations without having to rely on violence, which will mean that people will not be hurt and people are less likely to die. The ACLU once again concludes that, and I quote, "eliminating unnecessary interactions between the police and community members will reduce violence and deaths." However, there are some objections to this solution, and a major one of them is that the law enforcement is too largely institutionalized across America, which will be an obstacle to reformation. I say that the same reason that it is too largely institutionalized means that there needs to be a change, because law enforcement institutes are doing things exactly the way they have been since the beginning, and it doesn't comply with the modern times of people of color being unjustly treated with violence, and it most often results in death. An example of this is what is known as the thin blue line or blue wall of silence, which is an internal cultural code within police departments. It quite literally means that police officers will protect each other. It is a police code that, and I quote, "trumps constitutional policing with how things are really done in many police departments, enforcing trust and loyalty among officers over the individual rights of citizens." It's just crazy. If my solution were to be implemented, more factors are included in deciding who are able to become police officers, making it harder to become police officers, which means that only those in the best conditions are able to police the streets. According to the ACLU, and I quote, "training content and methods used should be scientifically evaluated, and selection criteria should be based on empirical evidence of efficacy to ensure that only those who are mentally competent can become accountable authoritative figures." On the other hand, if my solution were not implemented, people will continue to be harmed and citizens will no longer want to rely on police officers, which could lead to more dangers. We will continue to live in a world where, I quote, "although half of the people shot and killed by police are white, Black Americans are shot at a disproportionate rate. They account for just 13% of the U.S. population, but more than a quarter of police shooting victims." So which would you prefer? A nation that is protected by able-bodied police officers with capable mental abilities, or police officers who are trigger-happy and can literally get away with murder? To conclude all that I have said, I talked about why police brutality is a problem and why law enforcement should be reformed. I also offered a practical solution, which is how police should have more training, and I also acknowledged a potential objection to my solution and tried to correct it to the best of my abilities. I also addressed the hypothetical possibilities, both negative and positive, of implementing my solution. To go back to the big picture, the reason that police should be reformed is to create a country where the color of your skin does not perpetuate into dangers that could result in your death. My intentions are to advocate against hate and prejudice in order to embrace and be more accepting of the diversified culture we have in America. Just imagine, if the police are supposed to protect us, who is supposed to protect us against them? Thank you, and I hope I was able to give some insight as to why police reformation is a must in today's world. Thank you.